So we now go to our semifinal match. Bob Huang and Matthew Vook facing off here for a spot in the finals. Over on the other side of the bracket, we have Richard Cox and John Goss. So it'll be either Deathblade or Eldrazi on the other side. But right now, Bob on the play with Grixis Delver starts on Deathrite Shaman. You mentioned Matthew, if he didn't have Mox Diamond, he might not be able to play. Well, fortunately for him, he starts with that extra mana on the first turn.
That's where you want to be.
A Chalice of the Void for 1 straight away.
That's exactly where you want to be.
That's some big plays from Matthew. Now, Bob's Grixis, not Sultai, so once an artifact like that resolves, I'm not sure that he gets to remove it from the board. He just simply has to play around it.
Yep, got to deal with it. It looks like Bob is set up with 1 or 2 young Pyromancers. With that, even if your spells are countered with Chalice, you can try to go wide. From here, he has to fade Punishing Grove and actually be able to maintain some creatures.
Yeah, you see 2 young Pyromancers and a Ponder there. I believe a Snapcaster Mage. Something else. We'll see the last one there. So fetches out for young Pyromancer. That gives him that extra mana for Deathrite Shaman. They can't really do much with 1 mana under Chalice of the Void other than throw a Ponder into it.
Yeah, can make a 1 mana elemental token. And maybe if you're lucky, Matthew will forget his trigger.
We'll double check. Look, so swing for 1 with Deathrite Shaman. He'll just have to chip in. Matthew down to 19. And one of the things I like about the Punishing Obs on deck, when you're playing against someone who is a veteran like Bob Huang, playing this, we saw this in the Win and In, playing this match, which is all about format knowledge and timing and all these blue windows, it can be really hard to defeat Bob. When Matthew plays a deck which gets to do things like starting on Mox Diamond and just playing Chalice of the Void, you're taking a lot of dimensions out of the game, and those dimensions you're removing, these cantrips, that's where Bob gets his advantage.
Absolutely. It looks like Bob's leftovers are actually young Pyromancer, Ponder, and Gitaxian Probe, so he should be able to make a lot of elementals on the following turn.
Right. But you see Matthew here with Green Sun Zenith. He's aware of what's up. He just goes for Scavenging Ooze, thinking if this is going to be about creature combat, well, Scavenging Ooze is pretty good there.
Yep. No creatures in the graveyard just yet, so that's going to be a 2/2 for the foreseeable future.
Bob with another young Pyromancer. Yeah, it will keep the Deathrite Shaman and any of these elemental tokens in check to a point. It can block 1 each turn. Bob makes us another young Pyromancer, though. Here comes the army. Making the army he can. 2 elementals off this probe.
Bob picked up Force of Will, so there's a good argument for hanging back on that and actually attacking with the first Pyromancer.
He's got to bring 1 Pyromancer back. He can attack with 1 Pyromancer. The other one doesn't have haste, so we actually have to pause and back up here. Judging the rule that only 1 attacks. Okay, so Matthew will take 2 fewer.
Matthew hoping to assemble a Punishing Fire and make this Scavenging Ooze into a 3/3. That would put him in a quite good position.
And Bob, I like the timing here. He uses the Deathrite Shaman on his own Gitaxian Probe main phase, wants to dodge that Scavenging Ooze.
Yep. Bad news for Bob, though. Matthew has picked up Abrupt Decay, and you can't Force a Will this one. So that's going to go for the second young Pyromancer, and that works.
Yeah, Abrupt Decay kills young Pyromancer, and this is also very nice because now it puts a creature in the graveyard for Scavenging Ooze. Meaning you can go up to 3/3, and it's no longer threatened by these attacks from young Pyromancer. It can just block them.
Matthew does still technically have access to 2 green mana because of the uncracked fetch land plus Grove. Because he let Bob on tap, Bob could theoretically try to exile these young Pyromancer, but Matthew can double activate the Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, and there's not that many ways for Bob to play around 2 activations. This 1 tropical island is the only green source in Bob's deck, and that's so when there's a creature in the graveyard, if Matthew leaves up double green, he'll win the fight.
Yeah, well, you also need 2 Deathrite Shamans to even take advantage of double green anyway.
I suppose with Chalice, you're not really going to get another one into play.
I would think not. I've seen stranger things, but it's not easy.
And so the ways that Bob can deal damage are running out here. You can keep using this Deathrite Shaman to deal 2 as long as Matthew lets him, but that's still hard. You see Bob makes 1 elemental off Gitaxian Probe. The Scavenging Ooze just can keep the Shaman in check from the graveyard damage. It can also block. It's really the perfect card for this situation.
Yep. You can always target any instant or sorcery that the Shaman tries to eat in response with the Scavenging Ooze. So you don't take any damage off the Shaman.
Matthew will fetch down to 14 for Bayou. I would think then what Bob's looking for, and I know that he doesn't really have control over this because his cantrips are turned off, is the card True Name Nemesis to pull him out of this situation.
Yeah, that would change this game quite a lot.
No real choices outside of just drawing it. And we see another Chalice of the Void for Matthew picked up. He's got Green Sun Zenith, Chalice of the Void, and it looks like one more land.
Chalice on 2 would turn him off of casting his Punishing Fires in his deck, so he's not too into that one.
If he can make it up to 6 mana, do you think you might want to see him Chalice on 3?
If there's no True Name down, I could see it. It would counter his Knight of the Reliquaries. That would not be ideal.
Yeah, well, the nice part about punishing Obzon is even no matter what he sets it onto with Knight, he can always use Green Sun Zenith to sneak his cards into play anyway.
Yep, if he draws the correct cards anyway. It turns off Liliana of the Veil too, which is...
That's pretty good here.
Liliana is actually pretty weak on this board, I suppose. Though you do force some attacks, so your Scavenging Ooze just gets to eat things up in combat.
And Matthew just plays his cycling land. This is Tranquil Thicket, so has to build up his mana. And he maintains control of the graveyards and the battlefield with that Scavenging Ooze. Up to 5 mana now.
It's like Bob drew Gurmag Angler with that Scavenging Ooze eating graveyards. He's just not going to be able to get up to the threshold to cast that.
You see, Matthew, correctly, he's prioritizing Bob's graveyard first. Keeps it that. End step takes the land out with Scavenging Ooze. And now 4 mana. Looks like it'll be Green Sun's Zenith for 3.
Bob's been hanging on to a Force of Will with that other cantrip for a while.
Yeah, he'll make the play, and he'll get 1/1 Elemental for it. If Bob can find another young Pyromancer, he may be able to get a large enough board to attack past this Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, he's kind of relying on some specific things happening for him, and also Matthew drawing just irrelevant cards for a few turns.
Now, I like this from Bob. So he's right now uses Deathrite Shaman to go after a card in Matthew's graveyard. In response, Matthew eats it with Scavenging Ooze, but now Matthew's tapped out. So if Bob main phases this Deathrite Shaman, he actually can get 1 activation of it in.
Can do that. Also, if Bob draws Fetch Land, he puts another card in his graveyard, 4 lands, 5/6 in his graveyard, Deathrite Shaman, he could cast Gurmag Angler. It does not look like he drew Fetch Land, but he was playing to that out.
Yeah, he gave him that shot, and that would really change the game. Over on our backup feature, it is the number 5 seed, John Goss. He's playing 4-color Deathblade. He takes game 1 over colorless Eldrazi.
And Bob, no choice there but to Deathrite Shaman his own Force of Will there, getting those 2 points while they're good.
Here's another attempt at Green Sun Zenith for Matthew. Setting it for 3. This time there's no Force of Will, so it will work, and it's Knight of the Reliquary that enters the battlefield. Right now, the Knight a 2/2, and pumped twice by the cards in the graveyard, so it's up to a 4/4. Well, maybe just as important, Knight going to be able to start a stream of wastelands going at Bob's lands.
Turn off any semblance of being in this game that Bob is presenting.
Huang picked up Lightning Bolt. A lot of this comes down to that turn 1 Chalice.
Yeah. A lot of cantrips that did not draw cards, as you see all those elemental tokens.
And Bob just no plays on his turn, so we go back over to Matthew. Dark Confidant's the play.
And while the Confidant does deal damage to Matthew, it's hard to imagine the Confidant dealing a meaningful amount of damage to Matthew without producing cards that just push this battle position further out of Bob's control.
Huang does use the Deathrite Shaman to chip away at Matthew's graveyard, making sure that Knight, well, doing what he can to keep the Knight low on power. End step, Matthew goes to work with Knight of the Reliquary, sacrificing the forest, getting a wasteland. Looks like that play of searching up multiple wastelands, that's the line that Matthew wants. And he'll go first for the only source of black mana in Bob's deck. He goes after the Underground Sea. And Immediately exiles it. Like that a lot.
Yep, plenty of mana to spare.
Green Sun's Zenith revealed for Dark Confidant. Matthew down to 12. And he has picked up Punishing Fire to go with his Grove of the Burn Rose. He's going to cast Punishing Fire at Deathrite Shaman. And
he'll be able to do that a lot.
Yeah. Wasteland gone with the Deathrite, but then it hits the graveyard. We'll see how much of this Bob wants to try to go through. Matthew is really assembling the lock here. It's the prison style of Chalice for 1 plus Punishing Fire, Grove of the Burn Willows.
Matthew can even sacrifice this Bayou to search up a second Grove if he wants to start firing off multiple Punishing Fires a turn. Won't take long to punch through all these elemental tokens.
And Dark Confidant going to swing in.
I like this attack.
Yeah, I like the attack, and then I like how Huang doesn't even trade.
Yeah.
Because you killing yourself with Dark Confidant might be my best out, so
Right.
no blocks. Huang waiting on that. You know, he had one more turn there. I think he was waiting on the chance to top deck True Name Nemesis. He'll get the chance one more turn with this Scalding Tarn. Remember, Knight of the Reliquary going to keep going to work, however, on the mana as Matthew buys back his Punishing Fire. Now, see, Knight of the Reliquary activates again. More Wastelands from Matthew. See which color he wants to target this time. Looks like it's going to be the green mana, so Tropical Island is gone. It's the only green mana source for Bob, so it'd be tough for him to convert any sort of death rights in the future. 3 more damage. Matthew down to 10 off this Liliana of the Veil. That's one that actually Matthew can't cast yet. And we have to look at the 2 lands left in play for Matthew. None of them are forests or plains. So Knight of the Reliquary right now can't be tapped.
Yep. Need to get more lands out for that. So Matthew has plenty going on for himself at this point.
And he decides he may want to start attacking. Siege with just what? He's got a 6/6 Knight and a 2/1 Dark Confidant. Looks like both must send one or both of those in. And it's going to be both. So this is an attack for 8.
Yeah.
That should force some blocks.
Currently, Knight sizes up. It would trade with all 4 elementals and the Young Pyromancer.
He'd take that. Looks like Bob's just set to take the damage.
Bob has no reason to get in front of Dark Confidant. That's his only damage source.
Yeah, well, Huang's ignoring his own life, so his eyes are really just on Matthew's, thinking he can't make any sort of blocks that trades away his own sources of damage. And then Matthew goes to work again. It's Punishing Fire on Young Pyromancer. And Huang going to Lightning Bolt in response. That's countered, but he does get a 1/1. Young Pyromancer gone. And it looks like we have 5 elemental tokens for Huang. Draws Force of Will. Yeah, he has 5. It's going to be short, though. He will use the Scalding Tarn to go down to 6. We're still hoping to find a True Name Nemesis.
And with Matthew killing the Young Pyromancer, that'll enable him to gain another life with the Scavenging Ooze by exiling that creature.
And did get enough for Gurmag Angler. Delves away his whole graveyard. So the 5/5 is into play. Now does Huang want to send any damage?
At this point, that Knight is just so much larger than the Gurmag Angler. Would have been nice if he could convert it on that turn where he set up to top deck the fetch land.
Yeah.
Maybe could have got something going at that point.
And he'll swing all the elementals. So 5 come in. Scavenging Ooze blocks 1. Matthew will take the other 4 points of damage, go to 6. Huang's looking for some help from that Dark Confidant.
Yep. At this point, though, if Matthew attacks with all 3 creatures, any combination of 2 would be lethal. Huang's tapped out. There's nothing he'd be able to do about it.
Well, now he's at 7. Matthew bought back the Punishing Fire.
Yeah, you can just cast it.
Sure. Abrupt Decay puts Matthew down to 4. Drosser, you're right. It does look like on board Huang has lethal. Yeah, I don't believe there's a card that Huang could cast that changes the math here.
No, there's nothing that costs 0 mana that would mess this up.
Well, he has multiple dazes. If he has 2 days, Matthew could attack. Bob could go to 1, double daze the Punishing Fire, and maybe win.
Well, that would mean that he's blocking the Knight with the Gurmag Angler.
It's not great.
And then from there, I think Vook could cast Mox Diamond, cast Abrupt Decay on the lethal elemental token if the Punishing Fire even got countered.
Another Mox Diamond from Matthew. That one discards Barrenmore.
There you go.
He'll swing all 3. You know what? Huang can he'll block the Knight. He takes 6. Goes to 1. There's a Punishing Fire. Both players have seen it. And it will be lethal. Game 1 goes over to Punishing Abzan. It's Matthew Vook.
Yep, early Chalice of the Void, really tough. You know, Bob gave it everything he could. It's just really hard to come back from that.
Yeah, you said the Grixis Delver deck. It's the aggressive one. It's playing a tempo game that's low to the ground. Cards like Mox Diamond on the first turn, especially into the Chalice of the Void, are great answers to that kind of play. So these players are going to get ready for a sideboard after their first game, but before they do, we're going to tell you about next weekend, what's happening over Star City Games. It is our regional championships.
Plant your flag at the StarCityGames.com Season 2 Regional Championships. On November 4th, play Modern at any one of the 11 regional locations across the U.S. The first 200 players to register for each event will receive a Hammer and Scale playmat and Kraken token just for signing up. Regional championships are part of the SCG Tour with SCG points for all players. Top 8 competitors earn a trophy, a share of $5,000, and a spot on the Season 2 SCG Invitational. Visit go.starcitygames.com/regionals to learn more.
Opportunity there to plant your flag and showcase the modern format. Star City Games regionals, locations all around the country. I'm going to be battling next weekend in Minneapolis. So if you're in that part of the country, you're going to have to beat me to that one. Which means just nothing.
If you're playing the first 3 rounds, you might get paired against Matthias. So we go to the sideboards in our semifinal matchup
If you're hoping to play me in round 5, you're overestimating.
Catch me before
how much
noon.
Magic I still play.
You might meet the Matthias Hunt.
Sometimes the person who I drove to the event does well. I might be there till 1.
You might see me at the bar.
And then you're like, Matthias, how you doing? And I'd be like, man, you know.
The burgers here are pretty good.
Yeah, man, I wish my friend would just hurry up and lose his second round. So we could go home. All right, let's look at the sideboards for each player. On Bob Huang's side, he'll be on the play again. He's got 3 copies of Cabal Therapy, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Diabolic Edict, 2 Pyroblast, a Grim Lavamancer, and a Braid, an Ancient Grudge, a Price of Progress, an Is It Staticaster, and a Pithing Needle.
So there's some stuff here that's pretty good. I like the Abrade quite a lot. It's an answer to Chalice of the Void. You can tag Dark Confidant. If you're lucky, you can even hit Knight of the Reliquary. I do like Diabolic Edict a good amount, as it's another answer to Knight. You could reach for Cabal Therapy just because this deck is a little bit slower, so generally find them with cards in hand. That one seems fine here. You might reach for Ancient Grudge just because how big of a problem Chalice of the Void is. This is also a Mox Diamond deck, you know? Sometimes this could really have a very game-breaking effect.
Now, there's a couple questions here. This is a deck that plays some Life from the Loam. Is enough of that to look at Surgical Extraction?
It's enough to look. I could see this going one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm unclear. Maybe I could see anywhere from 0 to 2 in. And then Grim Lavamancer. It is a 4 Dark Confidant deck on the other side. It can answer that. Who knows? It could answer Knight of the Reliquary.
I would imagine not.
I suppose it's really just Dark Confidant that I can kill, and that may not be enough.
Right.
On Matthew's side, he has 3 copies of Leyline of the Void, 2 Containment Priest, 2 Aethersworn Canonist, 2 Golgari Charm, 2 Swords to Plowshares, 2 Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, a Garruk Relentless, and a Reclamation Sage. Now, a lot of these cards are really answers for combo decks, which Bob isn't.
Right, but there's enough stuff that's good against fair decks. More Swords to Plowshares seems solid here. Clean answer to Gurmag Angler, which is quite powerful. You do have to worry about casting it into your own Chalice, but you know, it's still nice.
I like that you said more Swords to Plowshares. So the Neeper punishing obs on these 2 in the sideboard are actually their only copies of the removal spell.
Yep.
Which, I guess that makes sense. You're a Chalice deck.
Right, it's hard to main deck this one. I like the 2 Golgari Charm. Those can clean up Young Pyromancer or True Name Nemesis.
Yeah, I like that, especially the True Name Nemesis part.
Pretty good reason to reach for Leyline into the Void just because of the Gurmag Anglers. A lot of stuff Bob is using in his graveyard. It won't be a knockout. I could see you leaving it on the sideboard as well, but there are games where it could be quite impactful.
So, True Name Nemesis, from Matthew's side, that feels like public enemy #1 in this matchup.
Yep.
And there aren't that many ways Matthew actually can interact with it. So much like game 1, Bob will start on a turn 1 Deathrite Shaman. Last time he was met with Mox Diamond, Land, or Chalice of the Void. We'll see if Matthew can put together something like that again. It's got basic Forest, and that might just be it.
Pretty big start. Can't wasteland that one.
It's a little less than last game.
Can't wasteland it. Taps for green mana.
Yeah, and Huang will get the next turn. He has indeed boarded in the Abrade as well. See that in his hand.
Looks like he has a Force of Will as well.
And a turn 2 True Name Nemesis.
That's where you want to be.
Yeah.
Shaman forces some other action before Liliana of the Veil could catch it as well. Shaman also doesn't just die if you get hit by Golgari Charm.
So, True Name Nemesis, turn 2 for Huang. Matthew will cycle. Huang has a Force of Will to protect it, but no blue card just yet. So here's a window where Golgari Charm could answer the 3-1.
Yep. Not even clear that you would fight that fight with Force of Will either, because you still have the Deathrite Shaman.
Okay. After cycling, Matthew's going to go for a play here.
Yeah, Force of Will is just a card you have to be super deliberate with, because you do 2-for-1 yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great here, but we did see how much damage Chalice of the Void for 1 can do. It's maybe one of those necessary evils in this matchup. Look at Huang's hand. He has Fetch Land, Abrade, Force of Will, and Gurmag Angler. Abrupt Decay is the black-green card from Matthew, so that'll take care of Deathrite Shaman, but it leaves True Name Nemesis on the board, and that'll start to go to work. 3 damage in.
That's setting up for turn 3 Liliana of the Veil, and because Bob drew Lightning Bolt, that would be good.
And it's a pass. We'll go over to Vook. Over on our backup match, it's going to game 3. Our Cullis Eldrazi player, Richard Cox, evens things out in game 2.
Bad news for Matthew. He has
Yeah.
Liliana, does not have the 3rd black
Can
mana.
only make Scavenging Ooze here.
This is meaningful, though, because Bob's hanging out with Gurmag Angler in hand. He gets to shrink the graveyard. Bob does have that Lightning Bolt, though, so he can fight over the Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, you see immediately Vook goes for Huang's graveyard, too, which I like. He attempts to make the Scavenging Ooze bigger. Huang looks like he's going to Lightning Bolt away the Ooze now.
Hard to pass up on that.
Yeah, I think that maybe there's a moment he could think, do I want to bolt it or abrade it? Bolt can go upstairs. In the end, he decides that abrade, that destroy artifact utility is just too good.
Yep.
And True Name continues to hit. Also for Huang, he now has a 2nd creature in case Liliana comes online. It's Delver of Secrets. He's got to decide whether to cast it or to leave it for his Force of Will.
Yeah, Force Protection pretty significant here.
Yeah, it's his only blue card.
Because the thing about it is Matthew still has a pretty full grip. He
Yeah.
could spend this turn, say, punishing, firing the Delver, and this Liliana in the next turn.
Sure. That's not even asking too much of his deck.
Yep.
Matthew uses Wasteland here to take care of an Underground Sea from Huang. Knocks Bob down to 2 lands. But Matthew still doesn't have an answer to the True Name Nemesis. You see, though, he's starting to try to set up that late game. He has Life from the Loam in his hand. Would love to get that Wasteland back and keep going to work. Life from the Loam, Punishing Fire. Liliana of the Veil, Green Sun's Zenith. Looks like Knight of the Reliquary are the 5 cards here for Matthew. Loam is the choice, getting back a Wasteland, a Tranquil Thicket, and a Verdant Catacombs. So
Yeah, the Verdant Catacombs is a pretty nice find because it's the 2nd black source for Liliana as well.
Right. Cast Loam. Does Huang respond? He's got Force of Will. That'd be his only response if he wanted to make it. And it looks like he says, yeah, that's fine. So 3 more lands into Matthew's hand. It's already made his land up for the turn this time, but he is set. He looks at his 7-card hand now.
And because Matthew can just dredge life from the loam and keep trying to go for that wasteland, Bob just has to ask more from his Force of Will. He just kind of has to hope that he can ride this True Name Nemesis to victory and only has to counter 1 spell along the way.
Yeah, and you see it's especially important, that pickup for Matthew. Tranquil Thicket was one of them. What he will do here is use his Green Sun's Zenith. He has a 1 of Dryad Arbor in his deck. He'll use that to continue to develop his mana. Huang, very deliberate though. He's pausing on each spell here for Matthew. I'd be surprised if this earns his Force of Will.
No, yeah, can't imagine it will. There's an argument for this eating his Abrade when that Dryad Arbor comes down.
Yeah, you can remove the 1/1 land. I'm not even sure at this point. The other targets which you have for Abrade, cards like Mox Diamond and Chalice of the Void, you know, if I'm in Huang's spot, we're past the point where Chalice of the Void is a KO punch.
Huang is probably fine with Vook controlling Dark Confidant as well.
Yeah, it really depends on how much this Dryad Arbor matters.
It's more of a graveyard math thing, actually. Bob has 2 cards in his graveyard and a Gurmag Angler in hand, and then that fetch land there. If he cracks fetch, casts a Braid, he'd have 4 cards in his graveyard.
2 mana.
But it's shy without a fetch land to cast the Angler anyway.
Okay, so we're still 1 short.
He drew Tropical Island, though, and that does sting a little bit. Had he cracked and cast the Abrade, he'd be able to Angler this turn.
So, he may be a bit short, though. Because he didn't cast the Abrade, he's 1 card fewer in the yard. So now he'll attack with True Name Nemesis. He puts Matthew down to 11 and just says go. And go back to Matthew. Verdant Catacombs goes straight for that 2nd black mana. He wants the Liliana to answer True Name Nemesis.
This is going to get that Force of Will.
Yeah, you know, and going back to that Abrade play, you could tell Bob was thinking about it and just kind of weighed the odds on here. If he had the Angler in play, it's possibly wouldn't even have to Force of Will this Liliana.
Good chance you still go for it, though.
Okay.
That Angler is a lot of extra pressure.
Yeah, Matthew is down to 10.
And Liliana is one of very few answers to even the Angler.
So here's Liliana, and yeah, Huang immediately with the Force of Will.
And with the Force, he gets to cast the Angler next turn.
Okay. You're right, 3 cards in the graveyard. That Flooded Strand will be the 4th. 3 lands in play. Checks out. You see Matthew's hand. Knight of the Reliquary, 2 copies of Punishing Fire. Looks like 1 Tranquil Thicket. And end step Huang is going to Abrade the Dryad Arbor, so Matthew will cycle Tranquil Thicket. Chooses not to dredge, he just draws a card.
It really just needs to find another Liliana or a Golgari Charm.
Yeah, and that should put him in the clear if he can do that before Huang finds another Force of Will. I'm not sure just how many Force of Wills Huang has even kept in here. They're fine in this matchup, but I could see him moving down from 4.
Because Chalice is a knockout, you kind of have to hang on to him. And because Mox Diamond is card disadvantage, you can make up a lot of that.
Okay. Gurmag Angler and an attack from Huang. Matthew's down to 7. But we look at Matthew's graveyard. It has plenty of lands in it. That Knight of the Reliquary in Matthew's hand should keep Gurmag Angler in check, but he still has no answer for True Name Nemesis.
Right. And that is the big problem.
Wasteland for Matthew. Just checking here on lands if he has anything he can search up with that Knight that can help him against True Name Nemesis, I suppose.
Not really much in the way of
like
lands that do that. Yeah, we saw Todd Stevens had a Tabernacle in his sideboard.
Yeah, he's playing Punishing Obs on this weekend.
That's not for everybody.
It would work here if you just kept tutoring up Wastelands with Knight and then dropped Tabernacle. I mean,
assuming
you wouldn't see it coming, but
assuming you had it online in time.
And Huang attacks again. Matthew down to 4. Huang is losing his lands to this Knight of the Reliquary and Wasteland, however. But unless there's an answer to True Name, it's not going to play.
Yeah, this game is just not about Bob's mana development.
No, it's really just about one card, and that's the 3-1. True Name Nemesis. Mentioned it as possibly the trump card in this matchup. Huang turn 2 on the play, made the 3-1, and it has attacked every turn since. The plan was say, hey, I'm going to win in 7 turns. And 5 turns later, that's still the plan.
Card arguably more powerful in Legacy than it is in Commander, the format it was designed for, allegedly.
This card is political. See. Use it to assassinate the player who's winning. But then
Right.
not anyone else.
Yeah, nobody else messes with it because it's
They
there.
could. And once you take out the player winning with it, then you know it's just a 3-1. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
With the amount of sweepers and effects like that in multiplayer, I'm not even sure it's just not even good in that format.
We're pretty good in heads up, I think. Maybe. I don't know.
We got to go to the table. You tap on the guy next to you playing the other game and say, hey, kill this for me. And then he bolts it, and then you're good. Knight of the Reliquary, the play from Matthew.
This is a lot of pressure, though. If Bob needs to, he can still just chump block with Gurmag
Oh, you mean
Angler.
like if Matthew just starts racing back?
Yeah. Well, Bob just has him in 2 turns here.
So he attacks Matthew to 1. I mean, if Matthew uses Knight removal spell on Gurmag Angler, we can get a count on these Knight of the Reliquaries.
Well, there just really aren't many removal spells for Gurmag Angler is the problem.
Yeah, he'd be looking at...
It's
I see the problem.
The clean answer is Swords to Plowshares, but Bob just gains 5 life.
Liliana of the Veil,
Right.
perhaps. Punishing Fire, cast end step here.
Yeah, still drawing to that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, Bob would have to sacrifice the Nemesis because he can't sacrifice the Angler.
Yeah, he can't win if he sacrifices the Nemesis without top decking another one, but
I like this, the end step Punishing Fire from Matthew. It looks like Huang is going to daze it.
yep, get it in while it's good. That daze is not going to do anything else here.
So you see, we thought Huang was at 11 there, but then the Punishing Fire didn't resolve, so we have corrected that back up to 13. Punishing Fire and Green Sun's Zenith for Matthew. He's on his upkeep. So if there any way, if he loams, how large could the Knights be? Right now, they appear to be 6/6s.
Yeah, you would hope to dredge over some lands.
Right. And he is looking to dredge something. Swords to Plowshares, Chalice of the Void, and Savannah into the graveyard. You know, the Swords to Plowshares would have bought Matthew a few more turns. It was his top card had he taken the draw step here.
Well, if he sorts his own Knight, that would
Yep.
have to be the play, yeah.
Oh, that was the play.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
It's the kind of line which you don't know if you want to play to because it's really not a good one, but it technically keeps the game going.
Right. Only mostly dead.
I wonder, maybe here was the line. If you dredge loam, you get back Tranquil Thicket, you dredge loam again, and all 6 of your dredges hit lands. Is it possible that's just a lethal attack through the blocker?
That's a lot of pump.
I mean, at least you're finding a line, right? But
Yeah.
it's you're hoping for a bit of a perfect storm.
Right. Yeah, the number of spells he can draw is pretty slim, so if there's an avenue where dredging and loaming can make these Knights lethal, you do want to go for it.
Yeah, he's going to cast that loam. 5 lands, it looks like, in the graveyard, so we have Knights at 7/7s. They have a long ways to go. Definitely
Just Thicket.
Yep.
Thinking about other things. Pretty sure it's just Thicket.
Thicket and
I
Wasteland.
guess the Wasteland can go back in pretty quickly.
Yeah, he's setting that up to be his land drop for the turn.
Can Wasteland himself? That's +1 lands in graveyard.
Yeah, and that's actually, I imagine that's the plan. You see him cycling to dredge loam, land. Okay, hold on.
There's a lot of lands.
All right, he's counting up here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we'll see in a second here. Did he have enough? There are a lot in there.
I'm counting 12, which is really unfortunate after the Wasteland on himself.
So 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's still
like 11 or 12.
short. So 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's wanted. You keep counting it. You want it to be something different. Now he plays Wasteland. Hold on. So 7 in the yard. If he floats mana, he actually has
a Punishing Fire.
Yeah,
and then Wasteland himself.
Punishing Fire. Bob to 11. Bob's at 11. And now he Wastelands himself. 9 lands in the graveyard. Is that lethal? Oh, this is so good.
I'm pretty
2,
sure
3,
this is lethal.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold on. Did we mess? And it's 9. Yeah, it's 9. He gets there, and Matthew finds this line to race True Name Nemesis with the double Knight of the Reliquary, and that's going to win the match.
That's wild.
I mean, that was so. We mentioned first, he's dredging one and thinking, well, if he cycles Tranquil Thicket and hits all lands, he's got a chance. That is so, man, that is the line. It's the lines you don't always think about those lines. You think that's not going to work.
Right, and even along this line, he dug pretty deep. He found the Wasteland himself, which is another layer to that.
Yeah, what he has to do is he has 2 dredges when he takes that play. And he needs, of the 6 cards he dredges, at least 4 of them to be lands.